In our previous episode, dear children, we witnessed the great battle between the Devas and the Asuras. For 10,000 long years, the universe trembled under the clash of celestial powers. At last, by the grace of Lord Mahāviṣṇu, Dharma prevailed, the Asuras were subdued, and peace was restored to the three worlds. When such great events take place, our scriptures teach us a beautiful lesson. Victory is never celebrated with pride. Victory is accepted with gratitude. In Sanatana Dharma, gratitude is not expressed merely through words. Gratitude is offered back to the divine through Yagya.
Gurudev, whenever I hear the word Yajña, I imagine a sacred fire, priests chanting mantras and offerings of ghee. Is that all a yagna is?
A wonderful question, dear child. If we understand Yajña, we shall understand the very foundation of Vedic civilization. The Sanskrit word Yajña is derived from the verbal root yaj. Our ancient grammarians explain this root as Yaj Deva Puja Sangati Karana Daneshu. The root carries three profound meanings. Deva Puja, worship of the divine. Sangati Karana, bringing together in sacred harmony. Dana, selfless offering. These three together form the complete spirit of Yajña. Therefore, a Yajña is not merely a ritual. It is an act of worship. It is an act of harmony. It is an act of selfless giving. The external fire that we see upon the altar is only a symbol. The true fire of Yajña must burn within our own hearts. Let me ask you something, children. Suppose your mother rises before sunrise. She prepares food for the entire family. She serves everyone with love. Only after everyone has eaten does she quietly sit down to eat herself. Tell me, what do you see?
I see love, Gurudev. She thinks of everyone before herself.
Exactly. That spirit of placing others before oneself is the very spirit of Yajña. The Vedic Yajña has precise rules. It has sacred mantras. It has consecrated fires. It has ordained priests. But beneath all these sacred forms lies one eternal truth: selfless offering. That is why the Bhagavad Gita teaches that even our daily actions can become a sacred yajna when performed without selfishness. After some time had passed, Lord Brahmā, Mahadeva, Indra, the Devas and the great rishis assembled together for a divine purpose. The Devī Bhāgavata Purāṇa describes this event beautifully in Devī Bhāgavata Purāṇa, Skanda 1, Adhyaya 5, verse 9. Tada kalena kiyata deva sarve savasavaha brahmesha sahita sarve yagyam kartum samudyataha. After some time had passed, all the Devas, together with Indra, Brahmā and Isha, Mahadeva, assembled and resolved to undertake a great Yagya. Did you notice, dear children? The Purana does not say they assembled to celebrate themselves, nor does it say they sought personal gain. They came together for a Deva Karya, a divine undertaking for the welfare of the worlds. That is the true purpose of every Yagya. Never personal glory, always universal welfare. The sacred altar was prepared according to the injunctions of the Vedas. Holy waters from sacred rivers were invoked. The 8 directions were sanctified. Agni was invoked into the sacrificial fire. The Hotra began chanting the Rig Veda. The Advaryu recited the Yajurveda. The Udgatra sang the melodies of the Samaveda. The Brahmā priest silently supervised every detail, ensuring that every mantra, every offering, and every sacred act remained faithful to the Vedas. The flames rose heavenward. The fragrance of clarified butter, sandalwood, and sacred herbs filled the atmosphere. The Yajña had begun. And as the days passed, the sacrifice advanced steadily toward its sacred culmination.
Gurudev, if Brahma himself was present, Mahadev was present, Indra, Agni, and all the Devas were present, why then did they meet Lord Vishnu? Could they not complete the Yagya without him?
That question takes us to the very heart of the Vedas, dear child. Listen carefully, for what I am about to say is one of the most profound declarations in all Vedic literature. Yajño vai Viṣṇu. This is mentioned in Shatapatha Brahmana 1.1.2.13, Taittiriya Samhita 1.7.4. It means the sacrifice itself is Lord Vishnu. Children, the Veda does not merely say that Lord Vishnu receives the sacrifice. It does not merely say that the sacrifice belongs to him. It goes much deeper. It declares that the Yagya itself is his divine manifestation. This is why Lord Vishnu is known as Yagya Purusha, the divine person embodied as the sacrifice. Think of a great tree. Its roots remain hidden beneath the earth. Yet every leaf, every flower, and every fruit depends upon those unseen roots. Likewise, the sacred fire, the offerings, the mantras, the priests, the worshippers, the assembled devas, all are parts of one sacred whole. That whole is Yagya Purusha. Without him, the sacrifice remains incomplete. This eternal truth is once again revealed by Lord Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. It means, actions performed for anything other than Yagya bind the individual. Therefore, O Kaunteya, perform your duties free from attachment for the sake of Yagya. Adi Shankaracharya, while commenting on this verse, reminds us of the Vedic declaration, Yajño vai Viṣṇu. The Yagya is none other than the Lord himself. Therefore, actions dedicated to Yagya ultimately become actions dedicated to the Supreme. Lord Krishna explains this even more directly. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhurevacha natu mama bhijananti tatvenatascha vandite. This is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9.24. It means, I alone am the enjoyer and the supreme Lord of all sacrifices. Those who do not know me in truth fail to understand this reality. Different oblations may outwardly be offered to Agni, to Indra, to Varuna, or to other Devas. Yet, the Supreme Lord dwelling within all of them is one. Therefore, every Yajña ultimately reaches him. The Bhagavad Gita then reveals the highest vision of Yajña. Bhagavad Gita 4.24 says, Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina, which means, for the knower of Brahman, the offering is Brahman. The oblation is Brahman. It is offered by Brahman into the fire that is Brahman. And Brahman alone is the goal attained through such contemplation. Children, this verse teaches us to see the divine everywhere. The act of worship, the one who worships, the offering, the sacred fire, and the goal itself, all become sanctified in the vision of Brahman. Such is the greatness of Yagya. Now you can understand why the Devas sought Lord Vishnu. The Devī Bhāgavata Purāṇa, Skanda 1, Adhyaya 5, verse 10 tells us, Gataha sarve atha vaikuntham drashtum devam janardanam devakaryartha siddhyartham makhana madipam prabhum. Meaning is, they all went to Vaikuntha to see Lord Janardana, the sovereign lord of sacrifices, so that the divine undertaking might be successfully accomplished. The Purana itself calls him Makhana Madipam Prabhum, the supreme lord of all sacrifices. That is why Brahmā, Mahādeva, Indra, and all the Devas went first to Vaikuntha to invite Lord Vishnu. But when they reached the eternal abode, the Lord was not there. Where had he gone? That mystery would soon unfold. The Devas stood in silent wonder. They had reached Vaikuntha, the eternal abode of Lord Narayan. Its brilliance surpassed the radiance of countless suns, yet soothed the heart like the cool light of the full moon. The divine attendants bowed before Brahmā, Mahādeva, and the assembled Devas with folded hands. Everywhere they looked, there was only peace. But the one whom they had come to meet was nowhere to be seen. A quiet concern spread among the Devas. Without Lord Janardana, how could their sacred undertaking be fulfilled? At that moment, the Devī Bhāgavata Skandha 1, Adhyaya 5, verse 11 reveals a remarkable truth. The Lord cannot always be found by the eyes alone. He is found through Jnana Drishti, the vision born of divine wisdom. Listen to the words of the Purana. Adrushtva tam tada tatra Jnana Drishtya vilokyate yatraste Bhagavan Vishnur Jagmustatra Tadasura. Not seeing him there, the Devas perceived through divine vision where Lord Vishnu was abiding, and they immediately proceeded to that place. Children, there is a beautiful lesson hidden within this single verse. Our ordinary eyes reveal only forms, but Jnana Drishti reveals truth. The Upanishads repeatedly remind us that the supreme reality is not grasped merely by sight. It is known through purity of mind, devotion, and divine grace. The Devas did not wander helplessly from one world to another. They became inwardly still, and through that stillness, knowledge dawned. Immediately, they knew where the Lord was. How wonderful! The journey that could not be completed by movement was completed by wisdom. The Devas followed that divine vision. Far away from Vaikuntha, in a sacred and tranquil place, they beheld Lord Mahāviṣṇu. The Purana now describes the scene before them. Kadachit darunam yuddham kritva devah sanatana dasha varsha sahasrani parishranto janardana Same deshe shubhe sthane kritva padmasanam vibhuh avalambya dhanuh sajjam kantha deshe dharasthitam dattva bharam dhanushkotyam nidra mapa ramapatihi shantatva daiva yogacha jatastatrati nidritaha. These verses describe what had happened before the Devas began their Yajña. After fighting a terrible battle continuously for 10,000 years, Lord Janardana had become weary. Seeking a peaceful place, he assumed Padmasana. His mighty Sharanga bow remained fully strung. He rested his neck upon the upper end of that great bow. Relieved of the burden of battle, the Lord entered profound sleep. The Purana says, Shantatvat, out of physical exhaustion, and Deva Yogat, by the inscrutable will of the divine, he became immersed in exceptionally deep sleep. Children, our acharyas explain that this was no ordinary sleep. This was Yoga Nidrā, a state in which the Lord appears to rest while his divine power continues to sustain the entire universe. Nothing had ceased. Time continued. The planets moved in their ordained paths. The rivers flowed. The winds blew. The stars shone. The universe remained perfectly upheld even while the Lord rested in Yoga Nidrā. The Devas stood at a distance. Before them was a sight of indescribable majesty. The Supreme Lord, his complexion dark like a rain-bearing cloud, his forearms radiant with divine splendor, his ornaments shining with celestial brilliance, his breathing gentle, his face serene, his neck resting upon the upper curve of the great Sharanga bow. The entire forest seemed to meditate with him. No bird sang, no leaf stirred. Even the wind seemed reluctant to disturb that sacred silence.
Gurudev, if they had finally found Lord Mahāviṣṇu, why did they not simply wake him? Surely the Lord would understand that the Devas had come for an important reason.
That is exactly the dilemma that confronted Brahmā, Mahādev and all the Devas. The purpose for which they had come was indeed sacred. Yet, standing before them was the Supreme Lord immersed in Yoga Nidrā. Who among them could presume to disturb him? Children, Sanatana Dharma teaches us that Dharma is not merely about doing what is necessary. It is equally about doing what is appropriate. The Devas understood this well. To awaken the Lord without reverence would itself be improper. To remain silent would delay the divine undertaking. Both choices appeared difficult. Both demanded wisdom. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence itself became a prayer. At last, all eyes turned toward Brahmā. Would the Creator discover a way through this impossible dilemma? The answer would come from the smallest creature in all of creation. A tiny white ant known in the Purāṇa as the Vamrī. And through that humble creature, the world would learn one of the greatest lessons on Dharma ever recorded in the Puranas.
Gurudev, why did Lord Brahmā choose such a tiny creature?
Because, dear child, Sanatana Dharma has never measured greatness by size. The divine often chooses the smallest instrument to accomplish the greatest work. Brahmā did not see an insignificant insect. He saw another child of the divine. With kindness, he called the Vamrī near. Lord Brahmā requested the little creature, "Child, Lord Vishnu rests with his divine head supported upon his mighty Sharanga bow. If the bowstring is gently severed, its sound will awaken him. Please help us accomplish this divine work." The little Vamrī bowed respectfully, but instead of immediately obeying, it asked a question. Not out of pride, not out of fear, but out of Dharma. Listen carefully to the words of the Purāṇa. Vamra uvacha. Katham karyamidam ghoram karishyami pitamaha suptasya bodhanam papam smritam dharma vidam var. Children, let us understand every word. Katham, how? Akaryam, an improper act, one that ought not to be done. Ghoram, a terrible deed. Pitamaha, O grandfather, O Lord Brahmā. Suptasya bodhanam, awakening one who sleeps. Papam, it is declared to be a sin. The little Vamrī says, "O grandfather, how can I perform such a terrible and improper act?" The knowers of Dharma declare that disturbing one who is asleep is sinful. Pause for a moment, children. Even this tiny creature refuses to act until it is convinced that Dharma permits it.
Gurudev, did even such a tiny creature know Dharma?
Yes, dear child, that is the greatness of Sanatana Dharma. Truth is never the privilege of the powerful alone. Even the smallest creature may become the teacher of the greatest truth. The Vamrī continued, Suptam bhitantaram chaiva ratishaktam kshudhaturam prabodhayati yo mudhastasya punyam vinashyati. The Vamrī now reminds Brahmā of a well-known principle of Dharma. It says, A foolish person who disturbs one who is sleeping, one who is overcome by fear, one engaged in intimacy, or one tormented by hunger, loses the merit earned through his righteous deeds. Children, have you noticed something beautiful? The scriptures protect those who are vulnerable. A sleeping person cannot defend himself. A frightened person cannot think clearly. A hungry person is already suffering. One absorbed in private family life deserves dignity and privacy. Dharma teaches us never to disturb another person unnecessarily. Such is the compassion woven into our civilization. But the little Vamri had one final question. It looked toward the sleeping Lord and spoke again. Visheshato Jagannatham Suptam Kasmin Yadrichaya Katham Bodhayitum Shakyam Papabhagyena Karmana. The Vamri asks, if awakening an ordinary person is sinful, then how can I possibly awaken Jagannatha, the Lord of the universe himself? Would I not incur an even greater sin? Children, what extraordinary purity of conscience! The smallest creature present there became the guardian of Dharma. The entire assembly of Devas fell silent. No one could deny the truth spoken by the Vamri. Then Lord Brahma smiled, not because the Vamri was wrong, but because it had spoken the truth. Listen now to Brahma's reply as in Devī Bhāgavata Purāṇa, Skanda 1, Adhyaya 5, verse 54. Brahmovach Kurushva vachanam medya devakaryam idam mahat Bhavishyati nate papam mat prasadat krimisattam. Brahma says, carry out my request today. This is Devakarya, a great work undertaken for the welfare of the gods and the preservation of cosmic order. O noblest among creatures, by my grace, no sin shall ever touch you. Children, notice carefully. Brahma does not reject the Vamri's understanding of Dharma. He accepts it, but he reveals that an extraordinary situation has arisen. Later Acharyas beautifully explain this exchange through two principles. Samanya Dharma, the universal duties binding upon everyone, and Vishesha Dharma, a higher duty arising only in exceptional circumstances for the protection of the world. The Vamri spoke from Samanya Dharma. Brahma responded from Vishesha Dharma. Neither opposed Dharma. One revealed its universal rule. The other revealed its application when the welfare of the entire universe was at stake. Brahma continued, Tasmat chigram dhanurjam chindi yatnada vishankita devatanam hitarthaya mamagyam paripalaya. Therefore, without fear, quickly gnaw through the bowstring. Do so for the welfare of the Devas. Fulfill my command. Yet Brahma's compassion did not end there. He granted the little Vamri an eternal place in every Vedic sacrifice. Yagye hutam cha yadhavyam vedi bahyam upagatam tava bhago bhavishyat teveti me nasti sanchaya. Whatsoever sacred oblation offered in a yagna falls outside the sacrificial altar, that shall forever be your rightful share. Of this, there is no doubt. Children, Brahma did not reward the Vamri with wealth, nor with power. He granted it an eternal place in every Vedic yagna. Even today, our traditional ritual manuals preserve this sacred remembrance. The little Vamri bowed before Brahma. Its doubt had been removed. Its conscience had been satisfied. Its act had become an offering in the service of Dharma. The Purana concludes this moment with profound simplicity. Evam datto varo dever vamraya parameshthina tatah sa chichcheda jam Viṣṇu chapasya sattvaram. Having received the boon from Lord Brahma, the little Vamri slowly approached the mighty Sharanga bow. The Devas watched in complete silence. No one spoke. No one moved. And then the tiny creature began to gnaw at the bowstring. The little Vamrī slowly climbed upon the mighty Sharanga bow of Lord Mahāviṣṇu. The bow had remained fully drawn throughout the Great War. Its string bore unimaginable tension. Even the Devas dared not approach it. Yet now, that tiny creature, acting only under the command of Lord Brahmā, began to gently gnaw at the sacred bowstring. No one spoke. Brahmā watched. Mahadeva watched. Indra watched. The sages watched. The entire universe seemed to hold its breath. Children, sometimes the greatest events in history unfold in complete silence. The tiny Vamrī continued its work. Moment by moment, strand by strand, the bowstring weakened. Then, in a single instant, it happened. With a deafening sound, the mighty bowstring snapped. Its thunderous twang echoed through all the worlds. The earth trembled. The mountains shook. The oceans surged. The quarters reverberated with an unimaginable roar. The brilliance of the heavens seemed to flicker. The Devas instinctively covered their ears. The sages stood motionless. Before anyone could comprehend what had happened, the tremendous recoil of the mighty Sharanga bow hurled forward with immeasurable force. The head of Lord Mahāviṣṇu, which had been gently resting upon the bow, was suddenly severed. It soared upward into the heavens and disappeared from their sight. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop.
Gurudev, how could such a thing happen? Could anyone truly harm the Supreme Lord?
A profound question, dear child. No one, not Brahmā, not the Vamrī, not even the assembled Devas, possessed the power to injure the Supreme Lord. What occurred here was not an accident born of human error, nor was it an act of violence committed against Bhagavan. The Purāṇa itself had already prepared us for this moment. Earlier, it declared that the Lord entered his profound sleep by Deva Yoga, the mysterious operation of the divine will. This event too unfolded according to that same inscrutable divine will. The Vamrī merely performed the duty entrusted to it. The snapping of the bowstring became the instrument through which a far greater cosmic purpose would soon be revealed. Children, throughout the Puranas we repeatedly encounter this truth. The Lord is never overpowered. Rather, he himself chooses the manner in which his divine play unfolds. The Devas, however, did not yet understand this mystery. They saw only the unimaginable. The protector of the universe appeared before them without his head. The assembly was overwhelmed. Indra trembled. The guardians of the directions stood speechless. The sages closed their eyes in grief. Even Lord Brahmā remained silent. None could explain what they had witnessed. Their minds were filled with only one question. How could this happen? Children, when events transcend our understanding, our scriptures teach us not to despair. They teach us to seek the deeper truth hidden behind appearances. The Devas too would soon learn that what appeared to be a catastrophe was in reality the beginning of one of the greatest manifestations of the divine. The mother of the universe, Sri Mahamaya, was about to reveal a mystery that even the Devas did not know. And from that mystery would arise the glorious form of Sri Hayagriva.